exploring the intersection of AI and HR. This is the AI HR Daily Podcast.
Hello and welcome everyone to our episode 7 from our AI HR Daily Podcast. Today we are diving deep into the learning and development domain and how to utilize AI within it. But first of all, Chris, how are you?
I'm good. I mean, we tried to record this podcast last evening, but Wi-Fi was not on our side. And this morning we set our alarms to 8 o'clock. And now we're here.
Let's go. Yeah, really excited about this one. I mean, it's part of
Same.
our mini series, right? Where we are diving deep into all of these subdomains of HR, basically, and looking at all the possible AI use cases within. And I think for learning and development, there's a lot which can be done, or that can be done. And but there's also a lot which needs to still be done in order to make this really like efficient in terms of AI use. Maybe Chris, what were your experiences in the past for like learning and development initiatives in the companies you've worked for?
Yeah. I think generally learning and development is a topic where a lot of companies want to be and do more in that topic, just because it definitely has a overall impact on the employee development. However, in my experience, I've only seen companies that actually allocate a certain budget to a certain employee and either tell the employee, hey, choose a course that you want to do, or choose something like a further development that you want to work on, and you have to kind of do it in your own initiative. And I think that is the foundational flaw. Unless you're in some kind of big enterprise where they have their own L&D department that supports employees and the development, you're pretty much on your own on most of the topics, sadly.
Yeah, I think obviously budget is always one constraint, but I also had the same experience that kind of budget was always allocated. So I would have been allowed to go for like MIT courses for 1-2K. This wasn't really the problem, but obviously the direction, the mentorship, and the individual tailoring of my of the learning path that's for me as an individual was certainly not there. I think also not possible before the age of AI, right?
The second problem is time. So in my works beforehand, it was so overloaded on day-to-day work that you never had time to do like further developments.
Yeah.
And especially in professional services, time is money. So every day that you didn't spend with a client was an unbilled day where the development costs them double as much, right? Not only the course, but also the lack of revenue that they generated for that specific day. So there's a lot of considerations that have to be looked at. But now with this implementation of AI in certain steps of the L&D development, I think we're going to see a lot of improvements in both handling time management, plus choosing courses, plus personalization. So this is going to definitely change how L&D is going to look like in the future.
Yes. And we definitely need this development, looking at this number here, right? Which is saying 89% of L&D professionals say the skills needed for the workforce are changing faster than the actual courses and education materials around this. So the development of AI is actually outpacing the education materials or the learning and development initiatives. And therefore, yeah, this AI loop is running on both sides, and you need to really leverage this on the L&D side as well, then, to keep up with the change of AI in the workplace itself, which I think is again a really fascinating phenomena of AI itself, right?
I agree. I think this 89% is so interesting because we already talked about this, I think, in the beginning of this value chain in HR for L&D, but in the early 2000s, you had a lot of like new skills coming up with the web, right? Everyone had to learn how to use software. And that was the core skill that everyone was learning on. Now, in the 2010s, there came like some technologies came up that people were looking more into, but there was not like a massive change or shift in mindset. Now, in the last couple of years, with the upcoming of AI, we do see that work profiles change. We see that skills change. We see that a lot of jobs, and we already talked about this also in one episode where we looked at how many jobs are impacted by AI and how many jobs actually have to adjust their skills to AI. And exactly this stat is saying that. Like, we've never had a time period where adjustment was needed so quickly and the pace was also so fast in where these skills have to be adjusted. Like, every 3 months, new tools come up, new ways of thinking comes up, new LLMs come up that change just how you enact with certain processes, right?
Yeah. And on the one hand, obviously, this is scary for a lot of people, right? Because a lot of change is happening. But on the other hand, it's obviously also a big opportunity, because you get the chance to upskill yourself, to make impact in a different way, to scale your impact, to grow further in your company, whatever, right? So all changes also bringing always a lot of chances within it, and therefore I think we should see it from this perspective. Obviously, the other perspective, like in terms of like how is this going to impact my workplace, is a really serious threat. But nevertheless, AI is coming, AI is there, and therefore you have to embrace it in a way
Yep, for
to
sure.
and deal with it, right?
Yeah, do we have, as for the last episodes, I assume we have a couple of use cases that you prepared that we will run through. I think both projects that we have already implemented versus projects that have been implemented by big corporations.
Exactly. That's the case. So we have again 5 here, which we would like to talk about today. The first one is really around like skill mapping. So using AI to really understand what kind of skills has my workforce, and what do I need to do in order to bring them up to speed in certain parts. And then AI coaching, really interesting one. So we have like a micro coaching service, or the ability to coach people really on a continuously basis without a human needing to sit with them all the time and speak to them. We are simulation, kind of like merging 2 different emerging technologies with each other, where you basically have role play and educating people how certain processes are done and things are done. This is a Walmart case study. Then we have new hire enablement. I think we talked about this one already quite a bit in the past episode. And we have these personalized development paths, which I think is also something which is really, really interesting, and which is a use case by IBM and realized with Watson, which is kind of the AI engine from IBM itself, right?
Interesting. Yeah. And I think we can already see right here in this visual that the first step of skills mapping is the foundation for everything else, just because the AI has to have like a current status quo of a employee to understand, hey, where is this employee actually? What is their job description? What are the requirements for this role? What does this employee actually have to fulfill in his day-to-day jobs versus what could they fulfill in the future? And I think this is really this process and methodology of skill mapping is not as easy and straightforward as everyone thinks, because how did they used to do it in the past, right? We used to do like I remember in my old company we used to do personality tests in the beginning to understand how a person thinks and how a person acts in certain situations. Now, next level, so I think skills also we have to take apart, right? So into like more of the soft skills and hard skills. So soft skills like personality and co, and hard skills more like technical skills, etc. And yeah, very interesting to see how they built this skills mapping exercise, because we've also talked about this a ton of times in the past. It's not a super easy one.
Yes, I mean, let's dive into it. And I think you're completely right, right? So this is the basis for everything in learning and development. And this is also really an interesting point, which we see everywhere when you want to implement AI. You need to have the data in place in order to be able to act and do and create value out of this, right? And this is exactly the same situation here. looking now at this case study. So what was done basically, we have a case study from Unilever here, and they utilized AI to exactly go through this skill mapping exercise, and then they utilized all of this data to proactively staff business projects and also understand which kind of cross-functional teams could be compiled in order to be the best possible team to achieve a certain goal. And they claim here a quite huge number in terms of like 41% of overall productivity gain or unlocking of this productivity gains with this engine. And to me, it makes sense, right? Because if you have like this meta layer which tells you these are my skills in the company, these are the skills I need for the project, and utilizing this then in this like intelligent way seems like an exercise which can drive a lot of value for big corporations, especially, right?
Yeah. So for me to understand, you take every person, you analyze every employee compared to a certain set of skills, experience, capabilities, etc., etc. Then you have like a big matrix for every employee. Then you say as an input, hey, I'm looking for someone in, I don't know, the automotive space. You get employee 1, 2, 3 because they exactly match those skills. So you do like a skill matching exercise with AI afterwards to, for example, allocate people on certain projects, clients, etc., to have like the best possible people on the best projects at the best time.
Yeah. And you even possibly can have like a more autonomous layer on top of this, where you get all the details from the project in, and then the AI engine is automatically suggesting people, maybe like sharing certain skill sets he would, or the AI engine would search for. Then you can refine them. Then the search is starting, presenting some profiles, kind of like recruiting actually. And then iterating based on the feedback the AI is receiving for these profiles. So yeah, a lot can be done here, and obviously a lot value can be unlocked.
I remember one situation in my past company where someone had the task to actually do this exercise manually. So everyone got I think it was an Excel sheet or something. Everyone had a certain sheet where they had to fill out, on the one hand, what projects they built within the company, on the other hand, what they did before, what industries, where they are good and bad, and so on. And this was a super manual process, and everyone hated it.
Yeah,
And in the end, what did you have? A slide deck with 50 slides where everyone was kind of mapped.
exactly.
But were we able to really use it? Not really.
Yeah,
And I think this is a very cool development. I actually like this model a lot.
yeah. We actually did exactly the same. I mean, we also used it for like client presentations to share the
Sure.
profiles which we would stuff on the project. But yeah, the value beyond this was really non-existent, I would say. And imagine having this on like this, or having the intelligence on top of this like data layer. Insane value, especially for bigger corporations. And actually, I mean, obviously, this is already of value if you have like a corporation of like a few hundred people, because then you already don't know who has the skills and knowledge in what domain, right?
I think it will be cool. Conversational AI, interview every employee for 15 minutes, get as much out of them, have the AI map everything, structure it in a database. And
Yeah.
then, I mean, this would be like actually a nice one. Like it.
Yeah. And you could also use it to like to try to understand what kind of interests does the employee have, and use this data then again to stuff them maybe on a project where they are really excited to work on, and therefore again increase retention, workplace satisfaction, and things like this. So a
Do you
lot of
think this is most for professional services companies where you have different types of projects and you have to staff different types of people? Or do you think you could also use it for like internal enterprise topics?
Yeah, I mean, like I always was mostly employed in like these professional services companies, but I think also for like more traditional firms, this makes a lot of sense, especially if we talk about cross-functional teams, right? And like projects which are not the day-to-day business.
Yeah, in the one client of ours, I think that could also be an interesting use case,
Exactly. Yeah.
by the way. Okay, cool. What is the next use case?
Nice. So use case number 2, also something which is really cool, and also again something which you could really nicely implement using voice AI actually. So it's this ability to micro coach people, not micromanage, micro coach people with AI. So basically, the value promise behind this is you have an AI which is always on, always there, and helps you to navigate the workplace, helps you to navigate different topics. For example, maybe sticking with the professional services domain, how do we build slides? What is the kind of methodology we use? What are the font sizes? What is the storytelling method we are following? Where can I find templates? Things like this. But also, how do I present better in front of the client? All of this, for example, can be utilized with micro coaching. And what is the value compared to traditional coaching? I mean, it's just the ability to offer this in the first place, right? Normally you have a manager which is talking to you twice a year in these performance reviews, giving you some tips, maybe taking on with you again like in a short bi-weekly checking in with you. But I mean, you mentioned this already as well, everyone is busy, everyone is in a hurry, and like these internal coaching topics most of the time just are not of the highest priority in the day-to-day business, and therefore this micro coaching AI use case I think is a crazy one, and we see here also cool stats. Obviously, these are vendor stats, so we have to take them with a grain of salt, but still, really interesting use case, right?
How does this actually look like in practice? Because for me, I get it that you have an agent that is with you the whole time, but what does it actually mean? Do you have an app on your MacBook or on your laptop that follows everything that you do, records everything that you say, or what does that actually look like?
Yeah, I mean, there are obviously like different levels to it. Currently, we are on a level where you basically just hop on a call with the agent or on a chat, depending on how the setup looks like. So, for example, let's stick with the call example. So, you hop on a call and you say, "Hey, I need to give a presentation to a client tomorrow. This is the topic. I don't know how to structure this. I'm feeling a bit nervous, whatever it might be." And then you get active feedback from the agent based on obviously the general knowledge of the agent, based on obviously the context engineered from the vendor who is like offering these services, and based on the company knowledge, I would say, which was always also fed into this agent. And in the company knowledge, context engineering, you again have like kind of 2 levels, more like general company knowledge around like how to build slides, for example, and then a bit more specific knowledge maybe from your manager with his preferences, but also with his kind of advice he would give for certain topics, which allows then, for example, to scale the manager's expertise across the people who are working with or for him. So this is really the situation you have in there. So it's more or less a chatbot, which is like highly tailored for this use case.
I think a lot of people, it's also underestimated how many people do have external coachings. So this is a nice approach where you say, hey, you have a once a week booked call where you jump on the call with the person or with the AI in this case. And the AI actually is there to support you in your work week, recap everything. I actually like this approach. We just have to still work on trustability because still a lot of people in the markets don't trust having calls with AIs and how data is stored, how anonymized it is. So this will just take a bit more time. I think the next 12 months we're going to see a lot of adjustments there, but this could be a cool one down the line. Maybe we're
Yeah,
a bit too early right now still.
true. Yeah, obviously, yeah. Trust is a big topic. I mean, what happens if someone takes these conversations and utilizes them to evaluate my performance? things like this. I think this is really crucial to consider, and have to. You need to have the really nice guardrails in place to ensure that this is not the case, so that this use case can really unfold all of its value, right?
Yeah. I think we're on the right track there.
Exactly. So let's maybe go on with the next one, and I think this is a really cool one. So this is, as mentioned already, the use of two emerging technologies. So on the one hand, you have VR, on the other hand, you have AI. And what Walmart did here is basically they replaced like a 8-hour classroom teaching session with an AI a VR experience where basically employees went through and were trained to do certain processes in a Walmart itself, but also outside of the core business, just to get them up to speed, train them how these processes work, make them understand what is important, what is not important, and get this dynamic feedback, right? So it's not like just a VR experience where you just go through like a game kind of thing. You actually go through and get active feedback based on the questions you have, based on the actions you take. And
We're
the
talking
value.
about in-store employees, right? In this case.
Exactly.
Okay. So distributing goods and co.
Exactly. So, and then what they did here, they designed kind of over 60 VR experiences, and the AI layer really tried to understand the movement of the people, the reaction times, the decisions, and then was really, or is really, coaching these people how to do better and how to do different things. And we see here the big value also is that you don't lose the knowledge, right? Because we talked about this also in our last episodes, right? So employees change, and then with every employee who is leaving the company, some knowledge is getting lost. And having these kind of trainings and handover sessions, you directly have this in a digitized way, and have this always available then for the future employees.
Yeah. So two more topics that come into my mind for this one. Lufthansa also does it, for example. So in their trainings, they use VR to simulate emergencies within the airplane, which just cuts down. I mean, you cannot simulate emergencies in real life anyway. So this gives them just a capability to also simulate scenarios that may not even be practiced in real life. So I think this is one interesting topic. Second topic, I sat next to a founder of a gamified training and development platform like a couple of months ago in the plane. Then what they essentially do is they go into manufacturing businesses, and for specific tasks that are super monotonous, so that are like really one where you do the same thing the whole day, they actually gamify it, and they have like a small screen ahead of like your machine where you're working, and you exactly see, hey, for every thing that you pack, or you get like another point. And for specific employees, after the end of the day, who gets the high score gets like a certain prize. So you are incentivized directly within like the gamified way for a task that is super boring and super repetitive. But that gives the employees like a bit of a gamified experience where they enjoy the process a lot more. And I think they were sold now, the company, to a big manufacturing company. But this is also a nice model where you bring software and AI into like a hardware manufacturing process where right now at this point in time, no one really can replace the employees, but you somehow have to motivate them to keep going, right?
Yeah, that's cool stuff. And everybody loves Candy Crush and all of these games. So therefore, I think this makes a lot of sense to bring this also in the workplace. And why not? I mean, if it's more fun for the people, and if it's leading to higher productivity, I think it's definitely a win-win situation. Nice, cool. I mean, three use cases done. I think the number 4 here. Let's cut it short, because we had a full episode more or less on onboarding and how to bring up new hires quite quickly on a nice productivity level. We see here some stats, but I think the overall tenor here is clear, right? So if you utilize AI, you can much more efficiently and effectively have tailored onboarding paths to utilize. Everyone who's interested in this topic, please go back and watch the prior episode. I think this is the point where you can learn much more about this specific AI use case in HR. And now maybe the last one. This is the IBM Watson use case, which I think is really, really cool and really, really interesting, and kind of a use case which is really advanced, not from an AI capabilities perspective, but from a data availability perspective. Because what we see here now is the topic annual reviews. And maybe Chris, to just quickly pause here, how were your annual reviews going, or your performance and compensation reviews structured in the past, not using AI so much maybe in these companies?
So, I mean, normal process as we know it, in the beginning, twice a year. At the end, it ended up in once a year. But let's go with a normal use case, which is like twice a year, every 6 months. You have a performance review. What does that actually mean? You give yourself a performance rating. Plus, we have a peer review system. So you get 2 to 3 to 4 different employees allocated to for you to give them a feedback. And that's how you close the circle. So for every employee in a company, you have a peer review, you have a manager review, and you have a couple of peer, for every employee, you have a self review, you have a manager review, and you have a lot of peer reviews from different employees that worked with you. So this gives you a frame where you have like 4 or 5 different reviews and scorings based on different criteria. And this gives the manager the best possibility to have an overview of how you performed within the last 6 months, if you're ready for promotion, if you're good where you are, or if you're underperforming due to certain circumstances. But, very big but, everyone hated it. It was a super manual process. And in the end, it didn't really help anyone because the peer reviews consisted of people being too positive. Your self-review obviously is always too positive if you're not like a super conservative person. And then your manager review was very, let's say, distant, because in normal cases you were not working with your manager directly. So we had like the data sources were not as good as they could have been, and that's why the analysis was good for some people, bad for other people.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I felt it was always an exercise to really map out what did you do, what did you achieve, and kind of report this so they can have a few arguments for your compensation reviews. And I think beyond this, there was limited value. Obviously, highly depends on all of the people involved and so on and so forth. But I think the general tendency, your coworkers are like being too nice, kind of yourself being too like having the incentive in mind that you want to get a promotion, compensation increase or whatever, and then the manager being quite far away from your day-to-day work. I think this is a tendency which is kind of everywhere in the world in terms of like this is how it mostly looks like for these performance reviews right now. So what IBM did here with the Watson AI engine, they basically went away from these like snapshots once a year or twice a year and tried to continuously evaluate and understand the performance and interests of their employees. So they really ingested in the engine training history, performance, data points, career interests also. So in order to understand again, where does the person want to go, what is exciting them in their day-to-day work. And based on all of these micro data points, obviously these reviews and the continuously the ability to continuously adjust what they are working on and what they are trained on was highly increased, and this really led to a really clear increase in faster time to competency. And if we now go back to the really first slide where we said, hey, our where L&D leaders said our educational initiatives are being outpaced by AI and the capabilities of AI, I think this is then a perfect way to close the circle here in terms of like being able with AI to more quickly understand what are the gaps, what are the interests, and then increase this faster time to competency for these new skills in order to be productive, stay productive as a company in itself. So really, really interesting use case here.
It's also a self-learning system, right? And this is exactly, this closes the gap that we were mentioning in the beginning, that coachings and trainings have to be adjusted so continuously right now because of the AI developments. Watson as a system for itself can adjust like on its own. And I think this is also where you have a leverage, where the AI learns and trains itself based on what's coming up now, time after time, and then learns a bit more about the skills that are needed in the market to be successful and to succeed compared to competitors, for example. And that's where you will have big leverage, right? Understanding the market, understanding the macro impacts of what is the economy doing, what are your competitors doing right now on the market, how is your ICP, so your ideal customer profiles, how are they looking right now, what are the customers doing? And I think if you have an ecosystem where you understand all of these aspects, you can exactly pinpoint down the issues and solve for them if you know where to look for these problems, right?
Yeah.
And exactly that is where the future will go, that every employee will be so up to date and so involved. It's just still about the methodology of how this data and this stuff is inputted. Because right now we said like we have a chatbot, you have a conversational AI. Will it be someone on Copilot or on Slack that writes you a daily summary and says like, hey, Chris, this and this happened with your competitors overnight. Let's do a recap or whatever, right? Let's have a chat. Maybe we have to adjust some things.
Yeah, it's really interesting how everything is going to be like stitched together, and I think the one important thing, which is obviously the foundation of everything, and we talked about this many times already, is the data and the data quality related to all of this. So you have to make sure that you get the proper data in place, that the data quality is in place, so you can really work with the data and make sense out of the data. And this is really one of three patterns which we wanted to share here as kind of like a general advice how to implement these use cases in a learning and development domain or in learning and development initiatives. So you need to make sure the data quality is in place, it's harmonized, and also there in the first place, because you can't build on top of nothing, right?
Exactly.
And then hybrid beats pure automation. I think this is also really a general mantra when implementing AI, especially in HR, because we're dealing here with human, right?
Yeah. Let's see. I think that we're going to see a lot of changes over the next couple of months. And maybe in 12 months, we're going to do another podcast where we're going to be like, hey, that's what we predicted at that point of time. But for companies starting out now with a clean slate and migrating systems, this is the best time you could have chosen. And we see a lot of companies that are changing their foundational systems. But data has to be on point, as Tim said. So structure your data in the best possible way. Consolidate as much data as you can. Rather save more data than less. You will need it at some point.
Exactly. Agree. And then obviously, why are we doing most of these initiatives? We want to have some form of an ROI, and here we really need to measure there for something, and we need to measure the right things. And I think here in this specific subdomain, it's really looking at promotion cycles. How are they improving? Attrition savings, a big topic. Time to competency. These are all the topics you should really look at and have benchmarked from the beginning onwards, so you really understand, okay, this was the impact in the end of the use case I have implemented. And this is already leading us to the last visual which we have prepared for today. and it's kind of like this one sentence summary of the whole episode, which we are trying to go for always. And it's really more or less the thing we just said, right? So you need to fix the data layer. This is the fundamental thing. Then you need to really measure the outcome and benchmark how it was working before. And then you can really go buy AI, build AI internally, roll out AI, and so on and so forth. But you can't jump the gun here. You need to have these basics in place before you really go for these fancy AI use cases, right?
For sure. And I think also in this case, not only buy AI, but also buy and build AI, because you will, for every company, need custom solutions. So standalone solutions in the market are good, but nowadays you can do a lot of custom topics down the line.
Yeah.
Cool. Tim, thank you so much. Really like this episode. A lot of good ideas, and looking forward to the next one.
Let's hope the recording worked today, and we don't have to re-record this.
We're not gonna do that again.
Okay.
Okay. Bye bye.